Welcome to Step Into Your Full Leadership Potential, Uncovering the Real Science of Transformation. My name is Gloria Coe, and I serve as the Senior Director for Alumni Career Engagement at UCLA Alumni Affairs. We're excited to have you here for this workshop with leadership coach Edward Gorbis. In today's conversation, Edward will teach you the neuroscience of beliefs and will give us practical tools to make powerful new decisions. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank our Alumni Association sustaining donors. It's with your help that we are able to strengthen the Bruin community with career programs like this. I am excited to introduce Edward Gorbis, a career and business coach and author of the book Unbreakable Mindset. He works with immigrants and first-generation professionals and entrepreneurs on how to rapidly accelerate their careers and businesses without sacrificing their lives. Gorbis is the CEO of Career Meets World, an online coaching platform. He's a startup advisor and the host of the Career Meets World podcast. My favorite fact about him is that he is a Bruin, graduate of 2013. So join me in welcoming Edward to the workshop.
Thank you so much for having me on today, Gloria. I will pull up my slides in just 1 second. So thank you so much, everyone, for spending this Tuesday evening with us. As Gloria mentioned, I am a former Bruin, very proud to have graduated in 2013. And I am super excited to chat with you all today and kind of share everything that I've been able to learn throughout my career, as well as help you really elevate your game across a multitude of areas, whether it be in your career, a business that you're building, leadership promotion that you're looking at, or even in your personal life. Because today is really about taking back your personal power. If you want to change any area of your life, especially in a leadership track, it really starts with a change in mindset. And many of us have had some sort of physical fitness training throughout our entire life. Today, we're going to be talking about mental fitness and what that really looks like. So to kick us off, I really want to spend just 1 second giving you a quick introduction about myself, why I'm even qualified to talk about this. As you can see on the left-hand side, I've spent the last 10 years across a multitude of different SaaS companies, and most recently in early 2020, started my own coaching practice. I wanted to share some fun facts about myself. I'm an avid world traveler. I love to scuba dive. I deeply, deeply value kind of meditation, taking care of my health, and more importantly, spend as much time as I can helping people like yourselves. And as Gloria mentioned, I have authored a free ebook called Unbreakable Mindset that you can easily find at my website on Career Meets World. To dive in, what we really have to center ourselves around today is that if we're being really honest, we've seen so much change over the last 12, 15 months, and the world has really become noisy. It's fractionalized, and it can be really distracting for ourselves personally. And my goal today is to arm you with all of the simple processes to help us all channel this inner energy that's trapped inside of ourselves so that we can strengthen ourselves and ensure that the next 6 to 12 months of your career, of your life, of some of the most productive moments that you're ever going to experience. So if I may ask, Gloria, if we could prompt our kind of poll question to everyone right now. What I really want to know is, if you think about this and you're being honest with yourself, how many hours in a single day do you spend in some sort of fear, overwhelm, frustration, or anxiety? And I'll share why I'm asking this in just a moment. So if you can quickly just answer the poll, and we'll give you a minute to do so. Great. Wow. This is definitely the first group I've seen with an overwhelming response, with individuals spending less than 2 hours a day in any sort of overwhelming state. I do see about 36% of you kind of fell into that range of 3 to 5. I appreciate those who are really honest and are spending a bulk of their day in that state. The reason I ask this, and the reality is that on average, everyone I've surveyed, and this has been truthfully thousands of people, most people spend about 5 hours per day in some sort of overwhelm. When we extrapolate that out to a week, to a month, to a year, that ends up being roughly 25% of our time. And my goal today is to help us understand, how do we get 90 days of productive time back into our year? And that's why mindset is so critical. And the next kind of key element that I really want to welcome everyone to dive into the chat box and answer is, what do these two specific things have in common, which is the World Wide Web and our brains? So again, just quickly use the chat box, drop in your answers. Curious to hear from you all. Somebody said addiction. What else? Creativity, uncoordinated, it's expansive. I love it. Connection to our daily life. These are all really good answers. And it's actually kind of a culmination of all of these. What our brain and the World Wide Web really have in common is that it operates like a search engine. And my goal, again, is to help you use this operating system that you have in a way where you're able to take back your personal power on a more consistent basis and really stand unshaken amidst this real and changing environment that we're seeing on a daily basis. You see, mindset and personal growth has become a bunch of white noise in our society that's masked in inspirational posts and motivational quotes that we might see from people like Gary Vee or Sarah Blakely. Don't get me wrong, I love all of those, but that's not what mindset is. And what I want to do is just take a quick moment to define it for us. Because the reality is, nobody in my life, not an AP psychology class in high school, not my parents, ever truly defined what mindset is. And it's not really a new conversation. It's one that's been discussed for thousands of years by some of the most successful people that many of us know, whether it's Buddha, Mahatma Gandhi, Arianna Huffington, or Sheryl Sandberg. Mindset is the developed capacity to utilize the mind and reorient and rewire your own brain. And I would suggest it is the most important skill you could ever develop in your life, whether you want to expand in your career, in a leadership practice, or in your business. And this conversation, again, it's all about taking back personal power, because mindset is really this mental technology that's designed to dehabituate a lot of the negative biases of the mind to get out of our own way, to get out of our own pain. And the only thing that's ever holding us back from more opportunity, the only thing that's ever holding us back from further career or leadership advancement, and the only thing that's really holding us back from more relationships in our life is mindset. So this conversation is about the conscious reprogramming of our mind, of the reptilian part of our brain. And we get to do this to ourselves when we truly understand what the next evolution of personal development really is. And what I want to share to you is a really important announcement today, is that every single experience that you have in your life is directly correlated to your belief system. And this is really important to know, because if we don't understand the way that we operate, there's no way that we can actually tweak all of the internal systems. And the fact of the matter is that when we're stuck in any area of our life that we're not living into unlimited possibilities, it's because we're viewing that area of our life through the constraints and the constructs of limiting beliefs. We're literally looking at that area of our life and we're ignoring all of the opportunities, all of the possibilities that are truly out there. Our thoughts are not aligned, nor are they congruent with what we actually want to accomplish. We're putting ourselves into a really terrible emotional state. And when we're not bringing resourcefulness into that area of our life, it's all because 20, 30, maybe 40 years ago, you came to some conclusion when you were never fully conscious. You see, 95% of our beliefs are developed during the first 5 to 7 years of our lives. So for example, if you weren't invited to your friend's 5th grade birthday party, but everyone else was, probably didn't feel good. If you were scolded by your teacher in front of a classroom when you were really young, it probably didn't feel good. If your parents forgot to pick you up from soccer practice or from kindergarten, it probably didn't feel good. And what's happening is is that we're constantly living that conclusion over and over and over again. And we can change all of this by simply changing our belief system. It requires work, but I assure you that it can be done. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do that so you can achieve literally anything you want in your career search, in helping you obtain new leadership opportunities and really thrive as a leader going forward. So let's talk about our brains, right? We just talked about the fact that our brains operate like our search engine. And our brains really have this belief system that's been programmed and conditioned into us at a very early age. So why are beliefs so important? Why is it so important as we think about how it's tied to our identity? And the answer is because the beliefs really predict and produce your destiny. And we've all heard this before, but I want to sort of explain it to you through the lens of psychology and really apply the neuroscience behind it. So whatever it is that you actually believe produces results in your life. And the reason for this is because there's a function of our brain called called the five primary drivers. And what I want to do right now is really quickly summarize what these five primary drivers are. It all starts with beliefs. Whatever it is that we believe in our lives is going to create and produce the thoughts that are in perfect alignment with our beliefs, right? You're going to perceive or react to an experience in your mind. This belief is in perfect correlation with that experience as well as that thought. Your thought is going to ultimately produce a feeling. You're literally going to experience that thought. Gandhi had this really powerful quote. He said, a man, or today's society, but a woman, is but a product of his thoughts. What he thinks he becomes, and the becoming is a feeling. It's the true embodiment of that thought that we can actually study the brain and see that every single time we have a thought, the brain releases a very specific electrical pattern. And what that specific pattern does is that it produces chemicals in your body and you experience that thought as a feeling. And if you look at what happens after a feeling, it always produces some sort of action. Sometimes that action be an inaction or a reaction or just being still. But your feelings dictate the quality of that action and you're going to take into your life. And your actions ultimately yield a result that reinforce your beliefs. Your beliefs drive your thoughts drive your feelings drive your actions drive your results, and your results reinforce your beliefs. I know I can't see everyone, but I would highly encourage you to either write this down, take a snapshot, take a picture. This is one of the most empowering things that I personally learned in my life through every single psychology, neuroscience, metaphysics, spirituality book that I've ever read. And it is the single greatest thing that I love to share with anybody that I work with, and certainly with the UCLA community. So we are going to continue to build on this. And I'm really going to share something with you that normally I would do in a group setting, but I at least want to give you a kind of tactic, a exercise that I want you to go through. You could start to go through it right now. You could start to go through it in the evening. But the idea is that, as you see here on the screen, there's really three columns here. One, where we all know we have a variety of different limiting beliefs that we experience in our lives. And what I'd encourage you to do is in that column, you could literally write out every single limiting belief that you have. Now, the important distinction is because we understand that we can actually decide what our beliefs are, right? Beliefs are decisions. We can decide what are our new empowering decisions that we want to live through every single day in our life and rewire and dehabituate these old thinking patterns. And the way that we do that is we stop and think. And for example, for myself, there's a variety of different empowering decisions and beliefs that I live through every single day. For example, I every single day write down and repeat to myself that my success is inevitable, that money is abundant, that family is the most important element of my life. And what I do, and the reason I know this to be true, the reason I can actually operate in life through the thoughts, through the feelings, take the appropriate action, get the results that I actually want, is because I start to operate through these true, new, and empowering beliefs. So the way that you understand that they're real is that we actually take the time to think about what is all of the supporting evidence in our lives that really validates that these beliefs are true. And oftentimes, what ends up happening is, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that our brains are like a search engine. So our lives are directly correlated and predicated on the quality of questions that we ask ourselves. If we were to go into Google, for example, right now and put in any question, if we said, why are we not getting the promotion that I believe I deserve? Well, Google is going to give you all the pretty answers. It's most likely going to run through its AI algorithm. But the truth is, when we utilize our own brain or ask ourselves that same question, our brain is just looking for patterns and experiences we've had in the past, and it's only going to bubble up answers based on the question that you ask yourself. But the difference here is that you ask yourself an empowering question rather than why am I not getting something versus how can I get this or how do I accomplish X? Your brain is actually going to go back and find all the different small experiences that are buried in our mind, that are buried in the back of the search engine, and really help you figure out why these beliefs are true. So typically, again, I would do this in a group setting and really discuss this in a more kind of deeper and thoughtful exercise. But after we complete everything, we'll go through deeper Q&A. So again, take a snapshot. We'll definitely share the slides with everyone. But this is a really critical exercise. It's one that I would encourage you to go through on your own. It's one that I go through with many of my clients. And really the goal here is for you to make sure that you can start to dehabituate this old thinking pattern. I typically recommend going through this consistent exercise every single morning. Eventually, you're not even going to write down what your limiting beliefs are. You're simply going to start your day by talking about your empowered new decisions, your empowered new beliefs. That will fuel your energy. And I'll show you how that all compounds. I'll show you how you're able to take incredible action. And I know that many of you joined tonight, not only just to learn about the transformation of your mind, but how this applies practically. And that's why I want to shift gears and take everything we just learned about belief systems and really understand and learn to apply these new beliefs more effectively, more efficiently, so that you as a future leader, a current leader, really learn to surround yourselves with incredible people that always elevate your energy, and it will enhance your relationships with everyone around you. The way to do this is to think about how most people operate. So what I want to share with you is a model that I've somewhat borrowed and adapted and now built on my own. And it's really this concept of an inverted triangle. Now, what I'm going to show you is how 95% of people wake up every single morning and really go about their day. And it starts like this. It might even be familiar to you, and we've all experienced this to an extent. We wake up and we operate through all of our past limiting beliefs, right? We've all woken up, especially over the last 15 months, where we've had moments around thinking, I don't know how I'm going to be successful at my job today. I'm not ready for that big presentation. I'm not ready for that big sales pitch. I have a promotion coming up. I don't know what I even need to do and show up. We start our day in such a low energetic state, right? Because we're prompting our brain, we're prompting our internal search engine to find answers that are not congruent with what we actually want to achieve in our lives. What happens is we put ourselves into this low energy state. From there, we have a lack of clarity. We have no idea what it is we need to do. We have no idea what we need to accomplish. We don't know how to even accomplish it. What that lends to, and again, remind yourself of these experiences or these days or these moments, what ends up happening is we ask ourselves a bunch of questions There's millions of them floating around about why I won't be successful, why I can't achieve X, why I can't work out today. And the truth is, again, all of this lends to something none of us ever wanted, which is tremendous fear. Fear of how something's not going to happen, fear of why you can't accomplish something, fear of why you can't get clients, fear of why you can't build your business. And when we are in a state of fear, we take a ton of reactionary steps in our lives that don't actually help us achieve anything. Unfortunately, whether it's ourselves, and I will admit this still happens to me, despite kind of eating my own dog food and going through the work myself, this happens to a lot of people. And naturally, there's different circumstances. It certainly happens to a lot of people for different reasons. But again, remind yourself that you have the decision to make every single morning what types of beliefs you want to operate through. What I've learned and what I've seen from the most successful people in our life is that most people operate actually, or I'm sorry, many people want to operate like some of the most successful people in the world, but they don't know how to do this. Well, the truth is you actually just got the recipe for how to actually start your day in a more empowered state. So let's flip this upside down. Let's talk about how do we show up as one of the most successful people in the world and actually achieve everything we want, actually help ourselves, position ourselves to get into a promotion, into a leadership opportunity, into landing more clients. The way to do that is to start going through the exercise that I just shared with you, which is making decisions that align with everything you want in life, with everything that you want to achieve, everything that you believe is congruent with what is actually meant for you. So you make these empowered decisions. These empowered decisions will inevitably drive a lot of energy for you in the morning. Through that energy, you're going to get a lot of clarity. You're going to know exactly what you need to focus on. And through that focus, you're going to start asking yourselves just a few, but really important questions. You're going to ask yourself, how do I take 3 steps today to move this specific thing or activity along in my life? How do I move a relationship forward? How do I expand my team? Whatever it is you need to do, you're going to have so much clarity and you're going to have so much focus. And instead of fear, with that tremendous energy, we get to replace it with courage or with confidence. And with tremendous confidence, we can take all the necessary action that we need to that specific day without losing focus on what it is that we want and what it is we believe. And this is how the most successful people in the world operate. This is everything that I've learned over the last 10 years of my career. I've seen the consistent patterns in the people that rise quickly and the people that fall quickly. And what I want you to do if you remember anything today, is that you get to make a choice. You get to make a decision every single day, whether you want to operate like most people or you want to be one of the most successful people. And at the end of the day, I will always leave you with this reminder, which is you are always one belief away from everything you want in your career, in your leadership opportunities, and in your life. Thank you so much. I will open up the floor to questions. Happy to answer as many as you have right now. I'll ask Gloria to assist me with this, and I'll be monitoring the chat box as well.
Wonderful. So let's see. I did have someone who did put in the Q&A, if you could share that first slide actually with the 5 drivers. Just to share, they weren't able to capture it, but can you share that with us?
Yeah, pulling it up.
Great.
There we go.
So wonderful. So if that person needs to get their screenshot, they can do that or take a quick photo. So wonderful. So then our next question is, what's the starting point for decisions? Do you start by defining goals, or yeah, that's the question. What's the starting point for decisions, and then defining goals, question mark?
It's a great question, whoever asked that. What I will share is that goals are very different from our beliefs. right? Beliefs is what helps us show up in accordance with who we truly think we are. In order to achieve our goals, we have to take the time to develop these empowering beliefs, right? And the beauty is that you get to choose whatever it is that belief is. That belief will ultimately be in alignment with helping you achieve that goal, right? To achieve any goal, we certainly have to take X amount of actions to get there, but we have to take empowered action, right? So that there is another pattern to this as well, but I would bifurcate those and make sure that we take the time to split those apart. And those are two very different exercises, but it's a great question.
I actually have a question for you, Edward. So, you know, in the triangle that you had, the pyramid that you have decisions, energy, clarity, questions. I feel like sometimes with the first three, it could be very good to do on your own. But then oftentimes when you get to questions, are you supposed to have the answers during that line? Or are you just coming up with questions and then maybe going to other people to get answers?
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually even share an example here. Somebody I've previously worked with. And the truth is, right, we talked about how our brain is like a search engine. And if we prompt the wrong questions, we don't necessarily get the wrong answers, but we get answers that aren't necessarily helping us drive action forward. We end up stuck in a rut. We take the same type of actions that lead to the same type of events, right? Whereas when we are in a state of clarity, we're in an empowered state of thinking, we can ask ourselves very specific questions. So somebody I previously worked with, she actually lives in LA. The company she was working for was based in New York. And the truth is, her and I were going through this exercise. She knows exactly what this model looks like. And she was asking me, well, and telling me essentially all of these limiting thoughts around why she's not going to get promoted into a leadership position. And I said, okay, I hear you. And I really want to understand, if we look at it through the lens of the model, what it is that you believe that will not help you rise into that next role. So she started asking herself the question, why can't I step into a leadership position at this company? And she said, one, the leadership team is all based in New York. They have no visibility into her work. They don't even know what she's been able to accomplish. She can't share that with them, right? These were what many of us might deem as excuses or reasons or justifications about why she was not suited for that position. And then I said, okay, well, how do we apply this model that she was genuinely bought into? And she said, well, clearly I'm not asking myself the right question. And I said, that's fine. That's a good acknowledgement. But why is she not asking herself the right question? So we went back to her belief system. And without going into her limiting beliefs, but she had a wide range of limiting beliefs that prevented her from even seeing herself as somebody who might be in a leadership position one day, right? She was told many times in her life that, I'm sure this isn't new to anyone, that women don't necessarily need to rise above anyone, or they might not be suited for that, or that she should focus on being a mother one day. All of these nasty things that should not be taught at an early age, especially to women. But these are things that she had heard, right? So these are clouding a lot of her thinking. And for some people, it's definitely deeper rooted than just simply talking about belief systems. But for her, she knew, and she'd done the work, and she knew that she could actually take the time to align with the fact that she's been ultra successful, right? She has all the supporting evidence in her life to prove that she's capable of everything that she has wanted. And I knew she was a natural born leader. It was evident through everything that she had accomplished and achieved. So I said, what is your true new empowering belief? And she essentially said that I am top tier leadership material. That was her belief. That's what she decided. And I said, that's great. And I said, okay, what can you build off of that? And it got her thinking, right? The energy kicked in. And then she got a little bit of clarity. And then she started asking herself questions. And to your point, Gloria, it wasn't about always having the right answers. immediately. It's about prompting the right questions in your mind to allow yourself to think about what is the appropriate action. And all she asked herself is, how do I get in front of the leadership team and actually show them everything I've accomplished? How do I develop a plan with them to show them that I'm more than qualified to lead a team in a remote office? And when she started doing that, she started to get the simple answers that we can all easily think of. Well, figure out if you can go travel to New York, right? She started to use all these previous excuses that she wasn't allowed to go in front of her team. She ended up traveling to New York. She ended up getting invited to go back to New York many times because she had great ideas. She proved that she was incredibly valuable instantaneously. And naturally, that led to a promotion within the next couple of months once they just had more visibility. But it seems so simple when we're not asking ourselves the right questions. But not asking yourself the right questions is just a function of operating through limiting beliefs. And I meant to go through that in a much deeper manner intentionally because I want people to be able to discern the depth of our thinking, the depth of these patterns, that not everything is always centered around how we just feel. We always have to trace the feeling back to the thought, back to the original belief.
That's great. We have another question. This is an anonymous person, but they asked, are there any tools to help clarify our beliefs?
That is a great question. Short of obviously working, whether it's with myself or a coach, oftentimes what I have found is that we go through our days glued to some form of technology or information source that is clouding our ability to truly think and sit with ourselves. So I know it might sound simplistic, but at the very bare minimum, the easiest way to kind of understand our own beliefs is to practice, we can call it meditation, we call it sitting in a room in silence, we can call it going out in nature, whatever your safe space is, right? There's different kind of layers of energy in our mind. And essentially the goal is to go down more into a beta wave of thinking. We typically operate in alpha wave state, but what that really means is we kind of decouple and we free up energy in our mind so that we can think clearly. In doing so, you're going to have more visibility, even though it's hard to see it when it's all clouded, but you will have more visibility into what your beliefs are. And the goal is not to have any judgment against yourself. The goal is just to be honest, because the only way to truly do the work is have complete, utter honesty with yourself. Nobody ever needs to see this work unless you want to work with somebody. But if you do this on your own, you just sit in silence and wherever that space is for you, and just take the time to write down whatever those beliefs are. Trace them back to what experience you might have had early on in your life. And it doesn't always have to be early on, but 95% of our subconscious is conditioned and habituated early on. So most of the time, it's an experience that we've kind of buried in our mind that is driving this current belief that isn't serving us. But once you go through that exercise, you can easily start to create and make decisions around whatever new belief you want to have. And you have to put it into practice, right? That's why I call this mental fitness. We don't just go through this exercise one time. We do this every single morning. You layer it in with some other habit that you already have. If you have breakfast, go through this exercise. If you like to work out in the morning, couple it together. It is the number one way to really introduce this on a continuous basis into your life. And I want to make sure that it is truly empowering your day. So I hope that answered your question.
Great. Thank you. Well, our next question is a great one. It's very thorough. So here it goes. We all have those days where we start off very strong and feel energized and empowered. But then at some point in the day, someone or something may derail us and we fall off the wagon in terms of feeling energized or courageous. What's your advice on the best way to bounce back from this and not let the negativity and limiting beliefs creep back in?
Perfect question. For much of my life, this was, especially as I tried to go through the work myself, this was something that happened on an ongoing basis. The best way to do this, and there's no easier way to say this, but you have to do the work. It's just that simple, right? You're learning this today. This is the first time you've been maybe introduced to this format or this structure. When we do the work, it's the same thing as we get stronger in a gym environment. Whatever you like to practice, whether it's on a Peloton or lifting weights, your muscles get stronger. This is somewhat similar. When you do the actual work, what that really means, what it leads to, is that we're dehabituating our old patterns of thinking and actually programming our own search engine with new empowering thoughts, new empowering beliefs, finding more supporting evidence and surfacing it to an area where our brain can actually access it. Our brains are very plastic, meaning they're malleable, and we can actually reshape a lot of the neurosynaptic connections in our brain. I share all the heavy neuroscience stuff so that we understand that when you're in that moment at 3 p.m. and your manager calls you, or a coworker, or a client, or your parent, or something happens in your life that just derails you, what you're doing by having done all that work, you're giving your brain and yourself permission to stop and train yourself to stop and ask yourself, okay, I've experienced this feeling, right? We are human beings. We experience something in reality. We trace it back to that feeling. That feeling can be traced back to a thought. That thought can be traced back to a belief. The difference here is now that when you go through mental fitness, you have a very different way to actually access a part of your brain. It might sound kind of woo-woo or spiritual, but I assure you this works. And you'll find this in every form of kind of neuroscience literature. But the reality is you give yourself permission to stop and trace that feeling, whatever happened in that moment, you trace it back to your beliefs. And then you have to ask yourself, and you have to be honest, is this event in alignment with what I believe? You'll understand why you felt something, but if it's not in alignment with what you truly believe, it's not in alignment with the action that you have made, the decisions that you have made that day and what action you actually want to take, then that's how we get ourselves out of that funk. You will always have that natural instantaneous feeling, right? Everything gets processed through our amygdala, which is kind of the reactionary reptilian mammalian part of our brain. But beyond that, that is why mindset work matters, because in moments of distress, you can make more sound decisions. Whether you're a Navy SEAL or even a police officer, despite how divisive that might sound, there is training around it to try to make more sound decisions based on what you believe. So that is just something important to understand and to take away, is that this work that you learned today, we have to do it continuously. And that's why I stress it so much.
Great. And actually, as an addendum to that question, our viewer, they also asked, what is the best way to deal with limiting beliefs in others when it comes to the non-professional space, such as personal relationships? It can be very draining when you are the source of positivity, but the people around you are not.
Great question, because whoever you are, I will say I feel this all the time as well. You may or may not have heard the saying before, but essentially we are a byproduct of the 5 people we spend the most amount of time with. So if you find yourself in a room, in a conversation, in the midst of a community or friends, family members even, where you are either A, the most positive person in the room, smartest person in the room, you probably want to get out of that room or setting. The reality is, if you find yourself that you want to achieve more in life, you want to have more excitement, you want to have better financial security for yourself and your family, you have to make the decision to leave and to actually take back your personal power and having respect for yourself. I used to think, and I will be very honest, for a very long time in my life, that my responsibility was making other people happy around me. But when you flip that upside down, there's a reason why we obviously put our oxygen mask on first in an airplane, is because we have to take care of ourselves. So whatever you might be going through or whatever experiences you're having, my main recommendation is to remove yourself from that environment, because toxic environments do not serve us and life is too short to be in them for elongated periods of time.
Great, thank you, Edward. We have Greg who asks, is there a book or course we can take to reinforce your teaching?
Yeah, I will share a link with Gloria to circulate that. It's available on my website as well. It's a free ebook called The Unbreakable Mindset. It's also available on Amazon. So that's kind of the central place for you to find it.
I did have one. Edward, you work with first generation graduates and professionals. And I was wondering, is there a common limiting belief that you notice, whether that's in first generation professionals or even just a common limiting belief that you realize people seem to have this more than others? Is there anything that you experience like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say there's kind of two common themes that I see. And look, I immigrated to the States when I was 5 years old, hence I don't have an accent. But for a lot of people, they immigrate at different ages. So I think for a lot of the first gen or even immigrants, not so much for first gen, but more so for the immigrants, they struggle with an accent, right? That's a limiting belief that they can't be successful in the workplace or in building a business because this accent is different. But that's a story they're telling themselves, right? All of these limiting beliefs, not all, but the majority of them really are just stories we're telling ourselves. So that's one common one. The second one oftentimes is a lot of immigrants, if you think about it, move to America with one sole purpose, right? People typically leave another country most often because they want to escape some political regime or a terrible socioeconomic condition. And they come to the States and they really want to create a better life for themselves. And the truth is that lends to kind of this survival mindset. And in America, we often see a lot of people talking about growth mindsets, and it's not always taught in like a perfectly scripted playbook in a K through 12 or in a college setting. But the truth is that a lot of people end up telling themselves another belief, which is they will always be in survival mode, that they will never be able to kind of hit that inflection point and really be able to thrive in the States because they've always operated from this place of survival. So it's definitely serves as a massive limiting belief that I see consistently. And it's often, unfortunately, even passed down from immigrant parents to their kids. So anyone that I've worked with that's first gen, I hear this even from them, despite the fact that they maybe have gone to school here.
I do have a question. A lot of our participants in our webinars, oftentimes they've maybe applied for multiple jobs. They really, maybe gotten an interview but didn't make it through. And they have, some, whether it's negativity or limiting beliefs around their ability to get the right job for themselves. This is just a scenario. What do you have to say to, obviously we won't know this specific person and their particular limiting beliefs, but do you have any words of advice and to utilize this, what you've taught us today, to get them through that period of job search and really putting yourself out there?
Yeah, my recommendation to them, and it shouldn't be any surprise to you, is to really go back to assessing first and foremost, kind of the top of the pyramid, is what action were you taking? Was it action that's aligned with what you actually wanted to achieve? Is it the types of roles that you want? Is it the types of companies you wanted to work for? Right? Think about and be honest with yourself what type of mental state you were in while you're applying to those jobs. Look, again, I completely empathize with anybody who might be going through financial struggle. There's obviously natural survival drivers there. But for other folks who might be kind of going through this and thinking through, okay, I maybe have a rainy day fund and I have the finances or the support to pay for whatever it is I need. But outside of that, they're probably just applying to jobs that aren't necessarily in alignment with what they want. They're applying to companies that they don't necessarily want to work for. And they're expending way too much energy and taking action on things that aren't necessarily serving them. And I share all of that because if we backtrack and really go through this, the opposite way down the pyramid is understanding that that entire time, maybe it's been 2 months, 3 months, 6, 8 months that you're not able to find the role that you truly want. At the end of the day, what you'll discover is that you were taking some sort of action based on beliefs that were not serving you, that were not in alignment with your true goals. And I assure you that by going back up the ladder through these empowering beliefs and being in alignment with what you truly want, you're going to get a ton of clarity. You're going to start asking yourself questions about where I can actually find the resources or the people or the network or the right recruiters to help me get into an organization. You're going to dedicate a certain amount of energy and you're going to have a lot more confidence again. You're going to go through this process. You'll take the right action. You'll see more opportunities. You'll get the right results. And then ultimately you'll land that job. I've seen this happen over and over and over again. And I really just kind of educate people on this value pyramid and how successful people operate. And when they see it and they take the action, they end up seeing the results that they want.
Fantastic. I actually do have another question for you. This is actually
Sounds good.
perspective. This is from the perspective of being someone, the partner of someone that maybe is trying to make these changes, or even a friend or family member. Let's say they watched this this webinar, they're really excited to really dig in. What is, as like a companion or a partner or a friend, how can we support those that, you know, have to work through the limiting beliefs and changing their thinking? Are there any tips that you have for those that may be supporting people going through this?
So it's a delicate question because first and foremost, I fundamentally believe that people have to make these decisions for themselves, right? We all have to make a conscious choice that we want to have some sort of substantial change in our life. Forcing it on somebody will never work, but introducing it, surfacing it, and everyone has a very different relationship with a spouse or significant other or even a friend, right? That might benefit from something like this. But I always kind of give them the silly advice that the truth is marketing 101 will teach us that individuals need to see something about 7 times before they truly start to absorb it, believe it, and find it credible. So if you want to help somebody truly, but they're not necessarily buying into it right away, start to showcase either different events, books, papers, things you've learned, the impact it's had on you. And they might not bite right away. But the goal is to continuously kind of leave this trail of bait for them that hopefully they'll make the decision themselves, because that's really the goal, is that they're bought into this and want to actually commit to the work.
Awesome. Fantastic answer. I guess one more question has come in. As you mentioned earlier, we tend to learn from past behaviors, experiences, and mistakes that may reinforce or establish limiting beliefs. Sometimes because of this, it is difficult to distinguish perceived reality, limiting beliefs, from actual reality. What is the best method to recalibrate and realize that what you thought was reality is actually a limiting belief?
Good question. It kind of allows me to reinforce something I brought up earlier, which is when we go through this continuous work, we realize a lot of the patterns in our past life that weren't necessarily serving us, or we'll start to remember certain events or moments or actions that we took, and we'll very clearly and definitively see that we took those actions through the lens of limiting beliefs, that it wasn't something that we actually wanted to accomplish. So the truth is, when you start to see that, you're also programming your mind, you're helping dehabituate a lot of your brain. And then ultimately, you're consistently reinforcing it through these new empowered beliefs and the new supporting evidence that you've created for yourself. And the beauty is you can always add new beliefs. You can always add new supporting evidence. And my hope is that there's going to be more supporting evidence because you continuously take empowered action. And it will only strengthen your mind. It's only going to make your search engine even more powerful in your own brain. So I say that again to reinforce this last critical piece, which is that when something happens, when you feel like you're kind of falling back into these old limiting patterns, because you're consistently doing the work, you know that you have this special tool inside of you, right? It's inside of your brain now where you get to think to yourself for a moment, how do I take this feeling, this moment, track it back to my thinking pattern, and then ultimately track it back to a belief? And that's where you have to be super, super honest with yourself, whether or not it is serving you. And if it is not, you get to stop and you take a completely different action. Most people, like we talked about, they don't have anywhere else for their mind to go. If you ask yourself any question right now, your brain will always give you some answer. Right, wrong, made up, assumption based, it's always going to give you an answer. That's kind of the beauty of the cognition of our brain. But if we want to be intelligent and really be successful and really take action with purpose, we have to condition our brain to be honest with ourselves. And it seems a little bit strange, but when you go through this practice and you start seeing the results, you're going to start to see everything show up for you in the best possible light.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Edward. Those were all of our questions from the Q&A. Do you have anything you want to close us out with?
Yeah, I simply just want to say thank you, obviously, Gloria, and to everyone at UCLA. Thanks for spending some time this evening. I really hope this was impactful. And if for anybody who wants to connect with me, you can always visit me on Career Mates World, shoot me a note, or certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. For anybody who was on today or might view a recording of this, I always love to ask people, if you choose to connect with me on LinkedIn, please just send me one specific thing. What is the biggest takeaway or download that you got from today's session? That is the number one thing I'll ask. And otherwise, I just want to say a big thank you again.
Thank you so much, Edward. Thank you for all of your the knowledge, taking what you've learned from your career and your practice and sharing it with us today. To all of our participants, we hope that you were able to learn a lot and hopefully start to really think about your limiting beliefs and how you can make change in your life today. We will be sending the recording out in a follow-up email, so just wanted to let those know that will be coming. And again, thank you so much for your time today, and we wish you the best rest of the week. Go Bruins. Take care.